Get started. I want to read a statement to you that kind of wraps up who these folks were, what their attitude, their heart is. But we just called this yesterday a conversation with Dr. John Perkins. So here we're going to kind of continue it today. Said that we, these church, brand new, some only maybe a year, some that haven't even officially, like Big John's church, haven't even officially started, even though they've been meeting. Says we desire to collaborate with each other as well as engage our respective communities within the gospel expressed through biblical justice and mercy. It says our conversation today with Dr. Perkins is mutual regarding our personal and collective journey to seek and pray for the shalom of Durham. So we kind of are in one accord, but they have real specific questions they'd like to ask. And so there were many things said, but let me just start off with maybe the most CCDA question that they had. And that is, please define for us CCD, Christian Community Development, and what that vision should be for us here in Durham in the context of these 4 new urban church plants that are all going to be, already are, very multi-ethnic, racial, diverse in many different ways.
I think number one, I want to say, I'm glad you're doing it. I think we're in line with what God is actually doing now in terms of discipleship. And I think the time is too urgent for us to, I think the time is right for us to plant so we can get online today. I think it's slow trying to change the old one. I don't mean we shouldn't give an attention to them, but that we should get them working with us and making this new wineskin. And I think that new wineskin is going to be at the cutting edge of the racial issue in our society, and that's wasting too much of our resources. And the way we're going at it is not going to make it. We've got to act to live it out, because we're going about it with racial reconciliation. It's not the race, it's because that's an error. It's not the race, it's the ethnicity. It was one human race. So if you got bad concept, you're not going to get it right. So I think this whole idea of planting new churches, and I can't see why not if we're working for God. Why not? And I think that we are making the churches too economically cost, because I think the church should be more of an action volunteer issue, and we're making a big financial issue out of it too quick. So I think we need to move with a sense of urgency of planting these new congregations.
Okay,
let's go back. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me interrupt here, and we can come back to that. Is one of the questions someone asked was, should we'll just say it this way, as the body of Christ in Durham are those that are very conscious about these issues, and we are involved in church planting new wineskin, these churches, should we be worried also about waking up the old mindset churches, or just focus on building the new, starting the new?
No, I think we should be welcoming, and we should be encouraging and inviting them to participate with us in learning. I don't know, we need to lose all our time there. But I don't think we should neglect them. I think we should try to get them on board, because some of these will be renewed with leadership. But there is young people now who are taking over old churches and who have the skills and determination to move forward.
Okay.
So I think we should do both, but I don't think we should leave what we're doing. I think we should invite them into the training and into the leadership, and then invite some of those who will have resources who would want to use those resources, particularly to help these new young church planters. And some people have a big vision. I think we need to give people a vision for the whole city, even beyond our own church plant. That's why you're working together.
Right.
I think we're working together in order that we might have impact within the whole city, And I think that was the ingenious always of the Billy Graham Crusade. They invited all the people, and so that had a better chance in raising the quality of life. Everybody benefit. And I think as more of these young churches get together, and people gonna still be church shopping,
Sure.
So I think it's we should get that participation as broad as we can.
Yeah. So there definitely is that spirit, and people are trying to learn the practical of collaborating with each other,
Right.
and not just trying to silo themselves. So maybe come back to maybe 2 or 3 of the key principles of Christian community development that these churches would benefit as they move forward, trying to collaborate with each other.
Oh yeah, I think in terms of community itself, we can continue a lot of the church growth, but maintain. It would be upward mobility, not reaching down and getting those people who are leaving behind. So they should be targeted in neighborhoods and in community. And when you're planting new churches, you got the ability to do that. Old churches are stuck with their building, where it might be, and we got to plant these churches where their need is at, and there need to be a broad base of church planting in a community, neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of conversation yesterday was about. They even talked about it being a theology of place, the importance of place, and they really wanted to hear just anything that comes to your mind that would be a benefit.
That's most important. That's most important, and I think it's going to be the most inviting, because the new young gang members don't see the relevancy of these churches within the community and how they impact in the neighborhood in which they live. You understand? And it's big in our community.
Sure.
It's big in our community. We're driving 10 miles, 20 miles to church, and there's the needs right here around us.
Yeah.
And so I think the church plant can get at that. And that's what we should be planting churches.
Okay.
And we're going to be strategic too. We're going to be strategic in the sense I'm telling people to plant in between the communities where the poor and the rich meet, the poor and the middle class meet, and try to draw from both sides. You got both the resource and the people. Yeah.
Okay. So probably the most overriding question, the reason we met, was for this question. And so here's the big kahuna question. It's, please articulate steps of engagement into a community by each of these new church plants. So let me give you one example, which you'll be very familiar with. The church that I'm a part of, we are meeting in an historically African American church. They have turned it into a heritage center for Durham, primarily in the black community. The history was where the city came in and ran a highway right through the point of economic thriving commerce for the black community way back in the 60s. And so so this was a place that they converted a church into basically a historical heritage center. We happen to have the privilege of a mixed congregation to be able to be meeting there every Sunday. Right next door, across the street and down the road, is a community called Southside. It's being revitalized. Some of it is going to look brand new, multi-level housing. Yet, right a street or two away, there are going to be multiple streets of people that are just trying to make it, hoping they don't lose their homes. Not very many apartment complexes in that area. And then you have North Carolina Central, the largest black college, as it was called in the day, in North Carolina, sitting right on the other side of that property. We're asking this question: how do we engage that community?
Right. What you really got to listen to and see and find out what Central gonna do. We spent a lot of time at Jackson State, and we put a lot of emphasis in our development. And then Jackson State and the county and the city use their eminent domain to wipe us out. Now, so do you wanna? You got to know what's going on, and you sure don't get in that line of fire unless you're just students. So you have to. Those kind of questions have to be felt out in terms of what's going on in the broader development. Because the college and the hospitals are going to wipe you out. You can't stop them. Because businesses you can protest and stop, but you can't stop the hospital and you can't stop the government in terms of development.
So using the CCDA principle of listen to the community, that's part of that.
That's it. That's part of it, and depending on how far along, you might want to mass some of that land because you probably have a greater chance, if things are right, of leaving that community with some resources. We did that in Philadelphia, in Society Hill. They was coming. We knew they was coming. I encouraged them to buy all the land they could. And then they had a bargaining deal with the new development coming there. So buy them and leave with some resources, because you can't stop heavy gentrification because the city's tilted that way, but you can run a bargain in terms of that if you got enough properties, to negotiate with them. And of course the developers don't really care. There's two levels of the development. There's one, the developers who developing it to get the money out of development. They don't care. They don't care, so they will pay whatever it takes to pull off the development. So these are is no great pattern to it. It's getting an understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood, what's going on in the community.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So these four, Durham is much bigger than these four new church plants, and so your answer is actually perfect for many of them. Most of these four churches, though, live their place, their meeting place, and their intentionality about reaching the community or working with the community. They're in places that are probably not where they're going to acquire much property. Any developments being done by the city, not by private contractors. And but many of them, really, their most anxious question is, are we going to do the right thing? Are we, we may do prayer evangelism and walk the streets and meet neighbors and talk with them. They know to do that, but they're apprehensive about, do we start a program, or do we partner with this group to do whatever? And you have a university here, you have Duke University, East Campus, near one of these others. You have one of these church plants in the most blighted area of Durham. And they're really just, they know the principles, but they just want to hear, I guess, any advice that you might have. What are some of those first steps or maybe second steps?
Yeah, I think just meeting places, don't worry about purchasing, because you don't have enough money. Mm-hmm. You're going to get stuck with billing, and in some cases you might get the billing given to you, or you might, there's a lot of places now they're having 2 and 3 church plants in one building. And there's, in Jackson, in one case, there's these old big dying historical churches that people come on, they haven't city, they're coming on, and the old folks just hanging on.